Wisdom, wisdom, that's the test. Which rival wisdom team is best? Quote definitions and synergies defined by Claude AI, coordinated by Grandpa Lou Valier. Take care and enjoy.
Team 35, move with integrity. Quote definitions, biographical context and synergy analysis 2. Replace hate with motivational education to guidealife.com. Quote 35.1. Subtlety may deceive you, integrity never will. Oliver Cromwell 1599 to 1658. Quote definition. Subtlety, the clever, sophisticated, multi-layered approach that navigates complexity through nuance and strategic indirection, can mislead as well as illuminate because its very sophistication makes it capable of justifying almost anything. Integrity, the simple, consistent alignment of action with genuine values, never deceives because it is transparent by nature and reliable by definition. Quote application. In the work of replacing hate with wisdom, the temptation towards subtlety, the sophisticated argument that explains why this particular compromise is actually the wisest approach, is the recurring danger that integrity's simplicity guards against. Cromwell's principle is the standing check. When subtlety and integrity point in different directions, follow integrity, because subtlety will sometimes mislead while integrity never will. Oliver Cromwell was born in 1599 in Huntingdon, England, educated at Sidney Sussex College, Cambridge, and became the dominant military and political figure of the English Civil War. The commander who led parliamentary forces to victory over Charles I, the man who signed the King's death warrant, and the Lord Protector who governed England, Scotland, and Ireland from 1653 until his death in 1658. His legacy is genuinely complex and contested. The man who championed parliamentary sovereignty and religious tolerance for Protestant nonconformists was also responsible for the brutal suppression of Ireland and Scotland and the military authoritarianism of the interregnum. His observation about subtlety and integrity came from a man who had watched and participated in the full range of political subtlety that the 17th century provided, and who had concluded that the simple standard of genuine integrity was more reliable than the most sophisticated strategic calculation. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Apply the subtlety versus integrity test when facing complex decisions. Which direction does genuine integrity point, and is subtlety being used to justify a departure from it? 2. Trust the reliable simplicity of integrity over the appealing sophistication of clever approaches that bend in convenient directions. 3. Apply Cromwell's standing check to the mission. When a sophisticated argument recommends a departure from honest dealing, genuine commitment, or full transparency, integrity is the more reliable guide.
Quote 35.2. There is nothing like a dream to create a future. Victor Hugo, 1802 to 1885. Quote definition. The future that actually comes into being is almost always the product of someone's vision of it, a dream sufficiently clear and sufficiently held that it organized the effort, sustained the commitment, and oriented the action that eventually made it real. Without the dream, the future is merely more of what already exists. With it, something genuinely new becomes possible. Quote application. The mission of making America wiser and kinder is exactly the kind of dream Hugo describes, a vision of a genuinely different future that is sufficiently clear and sufficiently held to organize sustained effort toward it. The dream is not an escape from reality, but the mechanism that creates a different reality. Nothing creates the future like it, which is why the clarity and the sustained holding of the vision matter as much as the tactics deployed in its service. Victor Hugo appears in teams 25, 34, and 35. His range of observation and his lived experience of genuine dreaming into reality make him one of the collection's most versatile voices. Born in 1802 in Besançon, he lived through the full arc of 19th century French history. Napoleon, the Restoration, the July Monarchy, the 1848 Revolution, the Second Empire, the Commune, spending 19 years in political exile before returning to France as a national hero. His novels were not merely literature, but visions of a more just society. Les Miserables was a dream of a France that treated its poor with dignity, and they genuinely influenced the social and political developments they described. He created futures with his dreams, demonstrating his principle across a career of extraordinary scope. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Maintain a clear, vivid, consistently held vision of the genuinely different future you are working toward, because the dream is not decoration, but the organizing force that makes the future possible. 2. Invest in the quality of the dream, its clarity, its specificity, its emotional resonance, as seriously as in the tactical work of pursuing it. 3. Apply Hugo's principle to the mission. The dream of an America genuinely wiser and kinder is the thing most capable of creating that future. Hold it clearly, hold it consistently, and let it organize everything the mission does.
Quote 35.3. Bashfulness is an ornament to youth, but a reproach to old age. Aristotle 384 to 322 BC. Quote definition. The hesitancy and self-consciousness of youth, appropriate while one is still forming and learning, becomes a moral failure when maintained into age, when it substitutes timidity for the honest engagement that wisdom and experience have made both possible and obligatory. The young may be excused for bashfulness. The experienced person who withholds what they know and have learned from timidity has no such excuse. Quote application. Every person who has accumulated genuine wisdom about what hatred costs and what kindness produces, who has lived long enough to know what they know and remains bashful about sharing it, is wearing a reproach rather than an ornament. The mission invites the end of bashfulness. Speak what you know, share what you have learned, engage fully with what your experience has taught you, because age and experience make bashfulness a choice rather than an understandable hesitation. Aristotle was born in 384 BC in Stagira, Macedonia, studied at Plato's academy for 20 years, tutored the young Alexander of Macedon for 3 years, and founded his own school, the Lyceum, in Athens in 335 BC. He is perhaps the most comprehensive thinker in Western history. His surviving works cover logic, physics, biology, psychology, metaphysics, ethics, politics, rhetoric, and poetics, and they shaped the intellectual traditions of the Islamic world, medieval Europe, and the modern university. His observation about bashfulness distinguishing youth from age comes from his Nicomachean Ethics, where he discusses shame as an emotion appropriate to the young, who need to be sensitive to how their actions appear to others while they are still learning, but inappropriate to the mature, who should have developed genuine virtue rather than relying on the external check of bashfulness to govern their conduct. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Release the bashfulness that experience and genuine knowledge have made both unnecessary and inappropriate. You know what you know, and timidity about sharing it is no longer an ornament. 2. Recognize the specific reproach that Aristotle names. The experienced person's bashfulness is not humility, but the withholding of what experience has obligated them to offer. 3. Apply this to the mission. Every person with genuine experience of what hatred costs and what wisdom produces has outgrown the ornament of bashfulness. Engage fully, share honestly, speak from what you know.
Quote 35.4. Necessity never made a good bargain. Benjamin Franklin 1706 to 1790. Quote definition. The person acting under compulsion, who must reach an agreement, must sell, must accept terms, is negotiating from the weakest possible position and will inevitably receive worse terms than the person who can genuinely walk away. Necessity removes the only effective negotiating leverage, the credible willingness to decline. This applies to commercial negotiations, to personal relationships, and to any situation where desperation compromises the ability to hold out for genuinely good terms. Quote application. For the mission and for everyone it serves, this principle is the case for building from genuine strength rather than urgent need. The wisdom education offered from the position of genuine abundance, confident in its value, not desperate for acceptance, will be received and valued differently than wisdom offered from the position of needing to be accepted. Integrity and abundance negotiate better than need. Benjamin Franklin appears throughout these 52 teams with characteristic practical wisdom. His observation about necessity and bargaining came from decades of commercial, diplomatic, and personal experience of how power differentials operate in negotiation. As the American ambassador to France, he had negotiated the Treaty of Alliance from a position of sufficient confidence. The American cause had proven its seriousness at Saratoga, to get genuinely favorable terms. He had also watched desperate negotiators, including colonial agents before him, accept terms that a less desperate position would have refused. His maxim distills the observation with his characteristic compression. Necessity is the worst possible negotiating position, and the wise person avoids it by building genuine alternatives before they become necessary. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Build genuine alternatives before the moment of necessity arrives. The time to strengthen your negotiating position is before you need to use it, not during the negotiation. 2. Recognize necessity when it operates in your own decision-making and apply extra scrutiny to the terms being accepted under its pressure. 3. Apply this to the mission's positioning. Offer wisdom from a position of genuine confidence in its value rather than urgency for acceptance, because necessity never made a good bargain.
Quote 35.5. Even if you are on the right track, you will get run over if you just sit there. John Ray, 1627–1705. Quote definition. Being correct, having the right values, the right approach, the right position, is necessary but insufficient. Without sustained movement in the right direction, the correctness of the position provides no protection from the consequences of standing still while everything else moves around and over it. Right track plus stasis equals getting run over. Right track plus movement equals progress. Quote application. This is the most practically urgent principle in Team 35. The mission is on the right track. Wisdom does replace hate, kindness does work, human dignity is genuinely equal. But being right about that provides no protection unless the mission keeps moving. Sitting on correct positions while the world moves produces the same result as being on the wrong track. Move or lose. John Ray was born in 1627 in Black Notley, Essex, England, the son of a blacksmith, educated at Trinity College, Cambridge, and became the most important English naturalist of the 17th century, sometimes called the father of English natural history. His Historia Plantarum and classification of insects were major contributions to botanical and entomological science. His Methodus Plantarum Nova introduced systematic biological classification that prefigured Linnaeus. His practical aphorisms, collected in a series of proverb collections, reflect the same empirical attentiveness he brought to natural history, careful observation of how things actually work, expressed in compressed practical form. His train track observation, using the image of a cart track in his era, updated to its modern form, captures with perfect practical precision the distinction between being right and moving forward, and the consequences of confusing one for the other. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Treat being on the right track as the starting condition rather than the sufficient condition. The right track requires movement to produce anything other than the injury of standing still. 2. Apply this as the standing challenge to comfortable correctness. You may be right about everything and still get run over if you just sit there. 3. Use Ray's practical urgency as the daily motivation for the mission. The track is right, the direction is right, the vision is right. Now move, because sitting on correct positions is not progress.
Quote 35.6. All money is a matter of belief. Adam Smith, 1723–1790. Quote definition. The value of money, and by extension of all economic value, rests not on physical properties but on collective belief. The shared confidence that currency, credit, and financial instruments represent real value and will be honored. Remove the belief, and the physical object, paper, metal, digital entry, is worthless. The economy is fundamentally a system of coordinated belief, and belief is what gives it whatever reality it possesses. Quote application. Extended beyond economics, Smith's insight applies to every form of social value. Reputation, community trust, institutional authority, and the perceived value of wisdom education all rest on collective belief. The mission of making America wiser and kinder is, among other things, a project of shifting collective belief, about who deserves dignity, about what wisdom is worth, about what communities are capable of. Shift the belief, and the value follows. Adam Smith was born in 1723 in Kirkcaldy, Fife, Scotland, was educated at Glasgow University and Balliol College, Oxford, and became the founding figure of modern economics. His Wealth of Nations, 1776, is one of the most influential books ever written, providing the intellectual framework for market economics that continues to shape global policy. His Theory of Moral Sentiments, 1759, which he considered his more important work, argued that human moral behavior is grounded in sympathy and the desire for social approval, which is itself a belief-based system. His observation about money being a matter of belief comes from his deep understanding of how economic systems actually operate. The gold standard, paper currency, credit, and all their descendants are systems of coordinated belief that function exactly as long as the belief is maintained and collapse the moment it isn't. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Recognize that social value, including the value of wisdom, kindness, and human dignity, is grounded in collective belief and therefore susceptible to change through the processes that shift collective belief. 2. Apply this to community and cultural change. Shifting what communities believe about human dignity and wisdom's value is the mechanism of the change the mission seeks. 3. Use Smith's economic insight as a reminder that the mission is fundamentally a belief-shifting project, and that belief, while sometimes slow to change, is genuinely changeable through the patient, consistent investment in the evidence and experience that genuine wisdom provides.
Quote 35.7, to advise conceited people is like whistling against the wind. Thomas Hood 1799 to 1845. Quote definition. Conceit, the closed self-satisfaction of the person who already knows everything they need to know and needs no input from anyone else, renders advice structurally ineffective. The wind of self-satisfaction simply carries whatever wisdom is offered away before it can be heard, processed, or acted upon. The effort is real, the result is nothing. Quote application. For the mission of spreading wisdom, Hood's metaphor is the realistic assessment of one genuine limitation. The genuinely conceited are functionally unreachable by advice because their conceit is precisely the closure of the receptiveness that advice requires. The mission's energy is better invested where the wind is not blowing, in communities and individuals who possess the genuine humility that makes wisdom receivable. Whistle where it will be heard. Thomas Hood was born in 1799 in London, the son of a bookseller, worked as an engraver before finding his vocation as a comic and serious poet, and became one of the most popular English writers of the 1840s, best known for his poem, The Song of the Shirt, a serious indictment of the conditions of seamstresses in Victorian England that sold 500,000 copies in a single year, and for his comic verse that was beloved by readers who also appreciated his more serious work. He suffered from chronic ill health throughout his career and died at 45, producing his best work under conditions of genuine physical difficulty. His observation about advising conceited people reflects both the practical wisdom of a man who had spent his career navigating literary relationships and the specific frustration of someone who had watched good advice disappear into the wind of confident self-satisfaction. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Direct the mission's wisdom energy toward those with the humility to receive it rather than exhausting it against the wind of genuine conceit that will simply carry it away. 2. Recognize conceit, the closed self-satisfaction that renders advice ineffective, as a genuine and practically important limitation rather than a temporary obstacle that sufficient effort will overcome. 3. Apply Hood's wind metaphor to strategic prioritization. Whistle where it will be heard, and invest the mission's effort where genuine receptiveness makes genuine wisdom transmission possible.
Quote 35.8. Familiarity is cruel to beauty, but kind to ugliness. Ouida 1839 to 1908. Quote definition. What is beautiful loses its power to dazzle through repeated exposure. Familiarity gradually dissolves the wonder, the freshness, and the awe that genuine beauty initially produces. What is ugly by the same process becomes tolerable and eventually normal. The shock fades, the ugliness recedes into the taken-for-granted background. Familiarity is the leveling force that makes beauty ordinary and ugliness acceptable. Quote application. This observation has a direct, and sobering application to both the mission's approach and its challenge. The beauty of wisdom, of genuine human dignity, of kindness, these can become familiar to the point of losing their power to move people who have been exposed to them too routinely. The ugliness of hatred can become familiar to the point of normalization. Both processes are real dangers, and both require the mission to continually renew the wonder that familiarity erodes. Maria Louise Rame, who published as Ouida, a childhood mispronunciation of her middle name Louise, was born in 1839 in Berry Street, Edmonds, Suffolk, England, and became one of the most popular novelists of the Victorian era, writing over 40 novels of romantic adventure, aristocratic society, and social criticism that sold in enormous numbers while being dismissed by the literary establishment as sensational. She spent most of her adult life in Italy, was notoriously extravagant, ended her life in poverty, and is now largely forgotten despite having been as widely read as George Eliot in her day. Her observation about familiarity's opposite effects on beauty and ugliness comes from a novelist with a professional interest in how exposure affects perception. She had studied the dynamics of how readers responded to beauty and ugliness in narrative and had drawn the precise and slightly melancholy conclusion that familiarity treats them very differently. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Actively counteract the familiarity that gradually strips wisdom and human dignity of their power to move, renewing the wonder, the freshness, and the genuine encounter that keeps the beautiful from becoming merely ordinary. 2. Resist the normalization of ugliness, the process by which hateful language, cruelty, and dehumanization become taken for granted background, rather than shocking violations of what humanity requires. 3. Apply Ouida's dual observation to the mission's communication. Keep wisdom surprising, keep human dignity vivid, keep the encounter with genuine kindness fresh enough that familiarity has not yet made it invisible, and keep naming the ugliness of hatred so that familiarity never makes it acceptable.
How they work together as a unified philosophy to replace hate with motivational education to guidealife.com. The Move with Integrity Framework. Foundation layer, integrity as guide and dream as creator, quotes 1, 2. Cromwell, establish integrity as the reliable guide when subtlety misleads, the simple, consistent alignment of action with genuine values that never deceives while cleverness sometimes does. Hugo, provide the vision that gives movement its direction. Nothing creates a future like a dream, ensuring that integrity-guided movement is aimed at something genuinely worth moving toward. Together, the compass and the destination of movement with integrity. Cromwell's integrity is the compass, when the sophisticated argument and the simple honest standard point in different directions. Follow the honest standard. Hugo's dream is the destination, the vivid, sustained vision of a genuinely different future that gives integrity-guided movement its purpose and direction. Move with integrity toward the dream. Courage layer, releasing bashfulness and refusing necessity, quotes 3, 4. Aristotle, demand the courage of experience, releasing the bashfulness that was an ornament in youth, but is a reproach in age, so that what has been genuinely learned is genuinely shared. Franklin, provide the practical wisdom that makes movement from strength rather than desperation possible. Necessity never made a good bargain, and the person who moves from genuine integrity and genuine confidence negotiates far better than the person driven by need. Together, the courage and the strength of movement with integrity. Aristotle removes the excuse of bashfulness for the experienced person who knows what they know and should share it. Franklin ensures that the movement proceeds from genuine strength rather than desperate necessity, because integrity-guided movement from confidence produces better outcomes than well-intentioned movement from compulsion. Action layer, moving on the right track and shifting belief, quotes 5, 6. Ray, supply the urgency that keeps movement genuine. Even the right track requires movement, or it produces only the injury of standing still, making continued forward motion the non-negotiable companion to correct positioning. Smith, reveal the mechanism of genuine social change. All value is a matter of belief, making the mission's work of shifting collective belief about human dignity and wisdom's worth the most fundamental available lever for the change it seeks. Together, the urgency and the mechanism of movement with integrity. Ray ensures that correct positioning is converted into actual movement. The right track with stasis is still getting run over. Smith reveals what the movement is actually doing at the deepest level, shifting the collective belief that gives social value its reality. Move on the right track. Understand that the movement is shifting belief, which is how futures actually change. Wisdom layer, knowing where to whistle and keeping beauty fresh. Quote 7-8. Hood, apply realistic strategic wisdom to where movement with integrity invests its effort. Advising the conceited is whistling against the wind, and wisdom is better directed where genuine receptiveness makes genuine transmission possible. Ouida, provide the standing challenge against the familiarity that levels everything, keeping beauty surprising and ugliness unacceptable, so that wisdom retains its power to move and hatred retains its power to shock. Together, the strategy and the freshness of sustained movement with integrity. Hood's realistic assessment of where wisdom can be heard ensures that the movement is strategically directed rather than exhausted against impenetrable resistance. Ouida's familiarity warning ensures that the beauty of what is being moved toward never becomes so familiar that it loses its power to inspire, and that the ugliness of what is being moved away from never becomes so familiar that it loses its power to repel.
Free Easy Extra Advantage Math, Spelling and Reading Workbooks you can download for free at stop2think.com or buy at educationstopshate.com. Free Easy Math Wisdom Workbooks with octo repetition to grow math self-confidence. You'll get plenty of repetitive practice of age ranges and averages of our 52 teams of 8 quote authors. Free Easy Alpha Cipher-coded puzzles teach letters, numbers, and phrases using antique wisdoms that encourage and educate. Can you decode this cipher quote of encouragement using either our learning to spell or just for fun instructions? And since time is money, practice reading faster with 52 teams of antique rival wisdoms that have passed the test of time to encourage, educate, and entertain generations for centuries. We offer printed versions and timed videos with background music. Sign up for free weekly emails of 52 teams of antique rival wisdom workbooks with easy math, spelling, and reading practice. And, if you'd like to get paid for sharing our wearable wisdoms, keep this in mind. Everyone I know wears a shirt, and most of us change them daily, so change your shirt and change the world. Social equalities are blatantly subliminal antique positive wisdoms repetitively shared without saying a word. This applies to all our wearable shareable wisdoms. Like pretty witty baby onesies and baby tees that you and others will see and read multiple times a day. The same is true with pretty witty kids, but they'll also share these wisdoms with anyone that can read at daycare or school. Youthful truths let your kids gain confidence sharing antique wisdoms with their friends. Imagine them sharing words of wisdom with classmates and teachers. I think tees I wear is a super easy way to share words of wisdom that have passed the test of time. Our social equalities help make us all wiser and kinder with blatantly subliminal messages promoting a more fair and equal opportunity society for all. And don't forget our giftwisdoms.com for birthdays and holidays that makes it easy to share the wisdom with clothing, coffee mugs, and magnets. So do the future a favor by encouraging, educating, and entertaining with words of wisdom that have passed the test of time to make us all wiser and kinder. With wearable wisdoms to fit babies, kids, and adults. You can clothe the whole family, city, or state. Join the 52 of 8 today.